Okay, this is our final lesson in Unit 3. Today we're going to be talking about westward expansion and how over time the United States expands its size. So by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to explain the short and long-term significance of the Louisiana Purchase and also describe how the United States expanded westward. So first of all, I want you to pause and study this image. What do you see here? Write what you think is happening. What do you think this means? So, Thomas Jefferson, who was president in 1800, very much wanted to expand the United States. At the time, the French controlled a lot of land in North America, including of the city of New Orleans, which gives access to the Mississippi River. So Thomas Jefferson sent U.S. diplomats to France to offer to purchase the city of New Orleans for $10 million. At the time, Napoleon was the ruler or leader of France, and he offered the entire landmass for $15 million. The significance of the purchase is it's going to double the size of the United States. So if we look at this map, you'll see the part that's in tan is going to be what the United States had for land after the Treaty of Paris. The Louisiana Purchase in pink basically mirrors and doubles the size. So now we have all this land. What you see in green in 1803 is still considered Spanish territory. The British still control Canada, and then Oregon country in the top left of the United States is claimed by several other countries. So, throughout this time period, the United States needs to establish hegemony, which means power. Okay, so there's a series of things that are going to happen that the United States will help expand. So, in 1823, the Monroe Doctrine was from President Monroe, who says to Europeans, no more colonization in North and South America. Even though we were too weak to enforce it at this time, we focused on national improvement, but it kind of like set a precedent for how the United States was going to view itself on our side of the world. We wanted Europeans to finally stay out of the business of North and South America and allow us to grow power. So this map is also going to show basically all of the different ways the United States grew from 1783 until 1853. The part that you saw on the first map that was Spanish territory, we eventually are going to get from Mexico, who's gotten their independence from Spain by this point. So the idea of manifest destiny is that it was our destiny to expand to the west. This led to expansion fervor, new land, and new technology led to a reason for more resources. The word manifest means obvious. So it was obvious that we would expand from coast to coast. It was our destiny to be across the entire continent. What are some of the reasons for people settling west? Trade opened up new markets, trades with Asia, land, farming, ranching, mining. We also had some economic issues, but we wanted to spread the virtues of democracy across the land. So, as you can see, these are all different trails that were taken by different groups of people. And eventually, the population will move all the way west to where California is today. But what this will lead to is a lot of interactions with natives. We trade in the middle ground. We have a couple of treaties, one being the Fort Laramie Treaty, where the natives controlled the Central Plains, but settlers are still going to move into this land, which it will be a violation of this treaty. Eventually, natives are going to move into reservations. Here you see the Great Sioux Reservation and the amount of land that natives will lose over time. Today, what the tribal lands are what you see there in tan, and you can see the amount of land that they lost. So how do we gain Texas? First, we have a group of settlers that are actually encouraged by the Mexican government to move into the area that is known as Texas. One of these people is Stephen F. Austin. We had offered to buy Texas from the Spanish and then the Mexicans, with them refusing to do so. But as I said, over time and as this need for land increases, more and more settlers are going to move into the area of Texas. Santa Anna of Mexico was considered the Napoleon of the West. He saw this growing number of Americans in his territory as a major threat. So eventually, the Americans living in Texas rise up and gain their own independence, creating the Lone Star State. Um, the fight for Mexican independence is most well known at this location in San Antonio, known as the Alamo. A group of about 150 men are holed up, and all of them ultimately will end up dying at the Alamo. But it became a battle cry of the revolution to remember the Alamo. After the Battle of San Jacinto and the death of Santa Anna, the Texas Republic is officially recognized. So you have the Republic of Texas, and Sam Houston is elected as their first president. So there's a couple videos here if you wanted to watch and learn more about the Alamo. But the important thing is Texas will be independent for a little over 8 years. In 1844, John Tyler wins the presidency, and then James K. Polk, very pro-annexation. So James K. Polk wanted to expand and gain New Mexico, California, and Oregon. This led to lots of disagreements, but eventually the United States goes to war with Mexico, and historians refer to this as the Mexican-American War. Many Mexican historians refer to it as the U.S. invasion. So thinking about how would the United States be different if it lost the Mexican-American War? So all the land that you see here, okay, in the salmon and Texas annexation here in yellow, all of this we gain because of the Mexican War. We pretty much gain half of what Mexico had for territory. So this was a significant thing for us and probably not so great of a thing for Mexico. But what this led to is more desires for people to move west. You have, at the same time, 1849, a gold rush in California, leading to a huge increase in people moving to the west. So let's take a minute to look at this picture, why the buffalo is so important. Over time, the amount of buffalo herds will be completely decimated due to overhunting by white settlers. But the buffalo played a very important role to the Plains Indian culture. So we had a massive culture clash. For religion, obviously Euro-Americans, that's people living in the United States, mostly Christian. They wanted the land for mining, farming, and ranching. Land to them is individually owned. Uncultivated land is totally useless. So this is the opposite of how the Native Americans used the land. They used it for hunting and gathering. Only a few tribes farmed. Most believed in communal shared land. So there will be major conflicts that are caused throughout the plains and west as a result of these culture clashes. We have the Sand Creek Massacre. We have another massacre. In Fort Laramie, tensions continue, the Battle of Little Bighorn. There's another video here if you'd like to watch that, and we'll talk a little bit about that with your Edpuzzle for your assignment today. So over time, Natives are forced to change their culture. In 1800, 64 million buffalo roamed the plains. Almost less than 100 years later, there were less than 400. And every buffalo dead is an Indian gone. The buffalo is so important to Native Americans, and this will completely change their way of life. The U.S. Army encouraged people to hunt buffalo because it meant that would have a drastic negative effect on Native Americans. So natives are very treated harshly. They're forced to assimilate, which means they're forced to adopt our ways. Many young children are sent to boarding schools. Missionaries, and then the Dawes Act will completely change how the Native Americans' way of life. So again, a couple of other maps here to show the loss of Native culture from about 1819 to 2000. So the end of the Indian Wars come at the turn of the century. Sitting Bull is killed, and we have the Battle of Wounded Knee, also known as the Wounded Knee Massacre. Railroads received land grants to help build a railroad to connect the coasts. The Homestead Act also encouraged people to settle. People were given land. In the plains, and this led to a huge increase in people moving west as well. So basically, remember, our essential question for this whole unit is, how does the United States expand? How does the democracy expand? But obviously, you can see from this slide deck as well, it's going to have a very negative effect for Native people. So you should have 4 lessons of notes to prepare for your test. That will be on Thursday.